All right then, welcome to day 2 of Partner Week. Thank you for everybody for joining. My name's Matt. I'm a Senior Account Director at the Marketing Practice. And yeah, I wanted to welcome back everybody who has joined us for some of our Partner Week sessions so far this week. It's great to have you back with us. And then warm welcome if this is your first session. So a quick overview for those newbies. Partner Week is a week dedicated to virtual events focused on the partner channel. So we're running a series of workshops and events, all focused on illustrating the huge potential for enterprise tech firms to drive growth through an investment through the channel ecosystem. So myself and my colleagues at the Marketing Practice are being joined by some fantastic guest speakers who are leading the way when it comes to channel enablement, growth, and the intersection with the direct route to market. So we hope that over the course of this week, you'll learn some practical tips and from some real-world examples to help with your 2025 channel partner strategy. And if you miss any of the sessions that we're running this week, be sure to register on the Partner Week webpage, and we'll ensure that you get the recordings afterwards. So for this session today, I'm pleased to be joined by Maisa Fernandez from ServiceNow and James Hodgkinson from 360 Insights, both partner marketing gurus, and they have a great story to share today, which illustrates the role that technology can play in connecting the dots across people, systems, and processes in order to drive demand more successfully and effectively for partners. So James, Maisa, I'm excited for today's session. I'm going to hand over to you guys and let you walk through the great work that you've been partnering together on for ServiceNow.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Great to be here and share a few of these thoughts. So let me kick off with a quick introduction to myself. My name is James Hodgkinson. I'm Senior Vice President of Ecosystems with 360 Insights. I came to the company through the acquisition of a portal technology called Web Infinity 2.5 years ago, and we're working on some very exciting tech strategy now to sort of integrate platforms across multiple systems. And we actually got connected with the ServiceNow team earlier this year for that reason, really, because we were trying to really align on what started off as conversations, predominantly around incentives capabilities, and has broadened to something much more interesting. So I'm really excited to be joined today by Maisa to talk through some of this, and I'm going to sort of act a little bit as the host, I guess, in terms of directing some of the questions that will help us tell that story. But before getting into that, obviously, I'd love to hand over to you, Maisa, to do an intro on yourself and ServiceNow, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Very exciting. My name is Maisa Fernandez. I've been at ServiceNow for about 6 years now. I've held a variety of different roles. I actually started in the organization with an ABM focus, and Matt and I go way back in those days when we started working about 6 years ago. About 3 years ago, I moved over into the partner marketing side of the business. And the reason for that is I saw a massive opportunity to help grow that side of the organization. We definitely needed some help there. And I like solving problems. And so here I am now. I'm now the Director of Global Marketing, Partner Marketing. And so right now, we met James, about a year ago, and identified some massive gaps that we had, and the ideas started to get put to paper and come to life. So,
yeah, absolutely, it's been interesting, the great journey, and I think like most excellent relationships between providers, it's more of a partnership of how do we do something special, here together as teams rather than the more traditional client vendor sort of dynamic, which has been testament to the way that the ServiceNow team and yourself has approached this as well. But it truly feels like we're trying to solve some big challenges together and learning from each other. So I think you're right. I think it was about a year ago when the teams kind of connected at one of the industry events and got kind of excited about potential. But it might be useful just to start with winding back to when we started thinking about executing. I think it was kind of the earlier part of this year. What would you characterize as really the challenge that you were facing at that time? Because obviously you had this objective of we'd really like to put much better structure and discipline into the partner marketing practice. But what was this status quo or the challenge that you were trying to solve for, going back to perhaps Q1?
now listen, we were offering a really poor experience to our partners. And, as a partner marketing organization, we sort of worked in silo. And so we were providing a lot of information to our partners in very sporadic ways, in different mediums, right? Via email, with SharePoint, and we were rolling out programs that were being loaded in all different areas of the organization, within our partner success center, our partner portal. Sometimes we weren't able to even do that there. Our prospecting day was run through our Americas organization, just through email. And so we needed to provide a little rigor around that delivery. We realized that experience for our partners was very confusing, and it was very messy. And our main goal was, how do we fix that? But on top of that, we also, as an organization, grew organically within the business itself. And so partner was never the first thing that came to mind. We were never a partner first organization back in the day. I would say in the last probably 5 years, that has changed. We have really worked to bring partner first, and we're creating that infrastructure in order to make sure that we are providing our partners with not only an excellent experience and a seamless experience, but a very simplified experience. And I think that's critical. And so by from our perspective, we needed to simplify, but also because we were grown from an organic fashion, we still had another group of people that we needed to enable, and that was our internal stakeholders. We really needed to help our internal ServiceNow employees understand what partners can do for the business. And so that was also a problem that we were looking to solve with this project.
And I think that's a really important point, right? Because when you think about trying to drive outcomes across the ecosystem, we like to talk a lot about the partners and the partner experience, but there's really a lot of connective tissue between the teams that support the partners with other partners, the partners and the customers. And that viewpoint of looking at it more holistically as the whole ecosystem, I think is a differentiator from just thinking about how do we solve on the partner side, right? Because it's all connected. And one of the things I think that was interesting as we started to get into this discussion, it wasn't really a supply problem, right? Because as you touched on, you had content in multiple places, you have many tools, many vendors, almost too much, right? So I think that was part of the issue that we're trying to solve, is how to manage some of the complexity of the sprawl. And it really was about trying to think through how did it all fit together to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, we have a name for everything. This is one thing that we sat down and we have a name for every program. We have a name for, we had a name for our partner marketing center, our partner success center. We have all of these platforms as well, as you mentioned. And so while we recognize that each and every one of those platforms holds value, we needed to figure out a better way to integrate that into a one experience. And so that's really where our focus was when we kicked this project off. And I think, you guys were really the ideal partner for us from a technology perspective to create that seamless orchestration, so that we're not having to make our partners log into every single platform every time that they're clicking through. We recognize that that's a poor experience, right? So we needed to hand deliver everything that they're looking for in, like I said, a very seamless fashion. Yeah.
Great. So let's talk a little bit then about the execution, because the theory is great. And we said, wouldn't it be awesome to have one experience and make life easier for our partners and drive, the kind of integration between partners and team members and so forth. But one thing that we did, which I think was a necessary starting point, was really take a step back and first look at business priorities, right? So this was part of the work we did that ran in parallel to software implementation, because everybody wants to get moving and say, we need some new tools. But part of it is, what is the business trying to achieve? And we have this framework that we use at 360 that's also been built in conjunction with our partners to say, first, let's look at how we can break down the KPIs and the actual business outcomes that are going to be important in the project. Because large organizations, particularly high growth organizations like ServiceNow, have many priorities, right? All the things we're trying to do that impact the ultimate success of the business. So you can work down from the primary goals of the organization to then look at how the ecosystem starts to impact those primary goals through potentially orchestrating, a better way of doing certain things. And that can then lead down to very specific projects or priorities. So one of the things that we did at the beginning of this process, and I think this was a great collaboration between the teams and the consultant partners that helped us fulfill some of these requirements, was workshopping this and going quite deep into what are we trying to do here, so that actually we could narrow the focus to a phased approach, which would enable us not to try to boil the ocean, but to really dig in and say, if we can impact these 5 or 6 things by delivering a project that can be out in the market within this period of time, we can have a direct impact on ecosystem priorities that will track back to business goals, right? So measuring the success on the business outcomes, not on the features and the functions and what capabilities we're actually trying to deliver. So I know you were very involved in this process, and you and the team provided a lot of input to help us really triangulate the tech approach. So I'd love you to share some perspectives on your viewpoint on this and the importance of really thinking about business outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting because you nailed it, right? If you're, I think this is a recommendation I have for anybody who's looking at bringing on any type of technology in their organization. You're not just buying the technology. I mean, you can, but that's the wrong approach, right? You really need to identify what are you trying to achieve? Again, what are your business objectives, and what are the gaps that you have, right? And we all have gaps, and you need to get that down on paper, because that's where you're going to identify the technologies that will fill that gap. And that was the approach that we took. We didn't take a one and done viewpoint where we said, okay, well, we already have a partner portal. It runs wonderfully. It runs on ServiceNow. And that wasn't what we were looking for. What we were looking for was a partner marketing infrastructure that really walked new people, new personas into the organization and helped them maneuver through the complexity that we offer. And so by taking the approach of understanding all of the different things that we wanted to do, identifying those technologies that were going to do them, and then simplify, right? Take a look at all the different vendors that we have and say, okay, well, we really need these, but we really don't need these. And we took out a few in that process, but it really helped us to streamline the exact infrastructure that we wanted to provide the partner, because it was, in the end, our business objective was what is that partner experience going to look like? And I think this is really where 360 Insights has helped us achieve, as I mentioned earlier, that seamless approach that really lets the partner get to exactly what they need when they need it.
Absolutely. And that was so important for us too, right? Because I think technology for technology's sake and trying to implement, pretty looking portals or whatever it is, it really isn't going to move the needle at all in terms of adoption and business outcomes unless you have that discipline in design, right? So understanding the current pain points, and we did do quite a lot of work at looking at the existing architecture to say which systems are in play, what's the adoption, how are they playing a role or not. We looked at the business goals and listened, to you guys predominantly and what you were trying to achieve, and then tried to understand how could those outcomes be enabled or better enabled through the use of technology, and that storefront experience being critically important to that. So what was initially a challenge, the multiple vendors, the different people working in silos, became an opportunity to try and unite and unify not only assets like content and tooling, but people as well. And this was interesting to me as part of being the leader of our ecosystem, where we have partnerships with the best of breed technology providers and services agencies in the industry. We actually found out that several of them were already working with ServiceNow, but they weren't talking to each other, right? So it's like, how can we get, you had technology from Structured Web, and you had agency and technology services from another company called Together, and we were working with internal teams that weren't necessarily connecting the dots with each other. So just to take a step back and to co-design something that then manifested itself as a storefront isn't just about delivering a user experience, it's delivering a more connected business experience, right? So it's been interesting to see that to come together in real time. And also going back to what I said about partnership, the commitment made by this whole extended team across multiple companies to deliver on those outcomes.
And not only that, it's also a whole ecosystem inside of ServiceNow. We have several, I think we have 4 DT teams that are working on this with us. That's quite a large group of people that are trying to interconnect all of the different platforms that we currently leverage for our partners so that they do work seamlessly. And so, from our perspective in partner marketing, we're really trying to drive consumption of the different programs and the different tools and capabilities that we have for our partners. Campaign Creator, which is built by Structured Web. We're rolling out a campaign AI functionality in that so that our partners can quickly build with their own assets as well as merge those with ours, so that all of a sudden their output is something that is extremely relevant to them, and not genericized with a slap of a logo onto an asset that is a ServiceNow asset. We're really thinking about how to create more unique approaches to campaign creation as well as to demand generation through this ecosystem, and that has been a huge focus for us. And so the fact that we brought all these technologies together and that we forced you guys to really have these conversations to see how we could really power each other. And again, how are you powering Structured Web, and how is Structured Web powering you, and how is 360 Insights powering the consumption of our demand center with together. There's so much there that I think is really all goodness, I think.
Yeah, I think it becomes a force multiplier, right? Because you suddenly have these whole, these kind of 1 + 1 = 3 scenarios appearing all over the place. And one of the things that's really exciting for me as well is the ServiceNow technology and all of this too, right? Because as we're getting more and more into the transactional side of this, we're starting to see, well, actually what ServiceNow has built is pretty powerful, right? With the workflow and the automation of different processes and how that can also plug in to the front end. So actually starting to engage with the ServiceNow product teams and the organization, because a lot of companies, I think, have struggled between this build versus buy type of scenario where they're trying to invest a lot, trying to build their own components. The truth is the platform that's needed is multi-components, multi-people, multi-companies, and the orchestration of all of that as a connected project will be, I think, a game changer for ServiceNow versus, this kind of traditional approach of IT teams trying to do everything, right? Because that's extremely hard, to keep up and to move at the speed of the business.
That's
So
right.
one thing, yeah, absolutely. And it's that, as I said, that partnership is really cool. So one thing I'd just like to also touch in, one that was really great, I think, in the way you made these of doing business work was that the way is presented more as the motions and not the features, right? So this learn, build, activate type of thing that gets the partner through very structured steps, the journey orchestration that can be hyper personalized around somebody who's net new in the ecosystem versus somebody who's very experienced, etc. The other bit that's very powerful, though, and I know a big part of the conversation we're having right now is how to actually motivate and incentivize that behavior, right? Because you had various incentives programs running, partner development funds, MDF that were starting to become important. There's the idea of rewards and points. And I know a lot of driving adoption and behavior is about what's in it for me. So I'd love to just hear a little bit on your philosophy around how do you incentivize this kind of adoption, and how is that playing a role within what you're doing in marketing?
Yeah, I mean, we are always competing against other partners, right? And other partner dollars, other partner time. And so we realize that we need to, create an opportunity to make our partners want to work with us. And so first and foremost, that simplicity and that learn, build, and activate methodology was critical for us. We needed to come and identify the maturity level at which the partner was at. And so we do have the ability for someone who's in sales, for example, who has no idea how to do marketing, to actually come and learn how to do it and then go do that activity, either by building assets and then go activate those assets. But then, when we really looked at the future forward of what we were creating in the ecosystem, was, with the partner marketing experience, we are here to help our partners consume the programs that we're building, right? We just don't build programs in hopes that our partners will adopt them. And so we are in process with you to create much more of a systemic and I'll say systematic approach to encourage those partners to actually become more adept at using the program and actually consuming and activating marketing that we're offering. We have a lot of co-funding. We have a lot of different areas and buckets of dollars that they can use. So we're simplifying the visibility around how to use that, and then we're taking them through the process. And then in doing so, by activating with us, by putting marketing in place and going into market, our partners have the opportunity to actually get almost reimbursed through credits. And so we're working with our credit reinvest program, as well as some other activities that we're building out with the 360 Insights rewards and incentives module. That will be rolling out in probably the mid of next year, where we're really going to be identifying and rewarding those partners who are all in with us and giving them the opportunity to reinvest in the organization as well.
I think that's been really, really interesting to see that play out when, again, you can now look at that through the lens of the whole picture. So not having incentives and the claiming of MDF as this disparate and disconnected process, but actually inherent to the journey orchestration that you're doing inside the whole marketing ecosystem, and enabling people to be seen for the small touches as well, right? Because it's not all about paying on a deal or issuing hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's incentivizing somebody to get onboarded or enabled or to create content that they're sharing with customers. And that ability to sort of look at it across the whole picture, and also for the other providers to also leverage the same incentives engine to say, if you run our campaigns and generate leads, you can be rewarded for doing so. I think people want to be seen, and the partners really will commit if they're actually seeing that the value of what they're providing is being measured and rewarded appropriately. And it's not transactional. If you do it that way, it becomes more about enablement and motivation that's real, right? Which is I think a great opportunity, as you said, for next year. And this comes back. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to interrupt there because there's also this amazing opportunity to enhance a co-sell motion, right? This is really where I think any partnership can actually 10x that relationship. And in doing what we're trying to do, we're actually starting to do a lot of ties around these leads that are coming in through proof of performance. And so we're taking a look at account engagement. And so the way that we are identifying that activity is, if our partners are engaging often with a specific account, we want to provide some of that visibility to our sales teams, right? So that they understand that there's an opportunity with said partner, that they should be calling that partner and starting a conversation so that they can go in together. It's so much more powerful. We can help each other in that process, and really, I think, build a better opportunity and a better infrastructure for that customer if we're doing that this way. And the partner ecosystem doesn't always work on transparency, and we're trying to offer a little bit of transparency in providing a little bit of that account engagement visibility, which I think is going to be really interesting. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, it's a great point. And one thing just to close on before we hand back to Matt is I think what's really interesting about this approach, we call it ecosystem orchestration, right? This is not, PRM or just partner portals or whatever. It's how do you move the needle on business outcomes by effectively orchestrating ecosystem members. And we've identified that in the goals we had through this year and moving into next, there were very specific personas, very specific systems, tools, journeys that need to be supported. But we're now starting to see the same exact techniques could be applied to other areas of the ServiceNow ecosystem, potentially impacting more of the go-to-market priorities you have. And I think that becomes very repeatable in terms of the methodology, even if the use cases are very different. So what does sort of Nirvana look like for you in terms of thinking about further embracing this model of actually going out and improving the world for everybody who kind of orbits around your company, not just this particular use case?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we're adding in personalization in a few weeks. So we're really excited because that's going to open up, it's really helping us broaden the amount of partner contacts that we're going to be in front of. So first and foremost, that's extremely important. For me, Nirvana is being able to provide clear attribution to our partners for the work that they do on our behalf, right? They are out there selling the product and representing ServiceNow, and we want to make sure that we are giving them the right amount of support and the right amount of infrastructure. And so Nirvana is when we are identifying when those partners have critical moments that matter, self-serving them with marketing kits that they can use so that they can implement those in market with enough lead time so that their sales teams feel empowered and enabled. And we're able to track from the moment we have started to talk to a customer on the partner side. Those partners will be able to lead that flow all the way to deal reg, all the way to deal close, and then renewals, right? We want to encourage the flow of building out our partners' business more than anything right now. And so that to me is Nirvana, and that's what we're aiming to achieve.
Fantastic. So Matt, back to you. I think you may have a couple of questions to close the session.
Yeah, I love that. I think what you guys have achieved when you look back over the past year is quite something. I think it's also great to tie back to some of the points that we've heard from Jay McBain on how the world of partner marketing is becoming more and more of a team sport than ever before. It always has been, but I think now more than ever, being able to achieve what you've done in the past year would not be possible without the level of partnerships and connections and the kind of variety of skill sets that you've brought to the table, across the different teams that have been involved in this over the past year. I'm interested to hear, Maisa, what has some of the feedback been from partners? Obviously, you've been going through this kind of transformation. What has some of that initial feedback been from partners on kind of simplifying their experience?
So, relief. I think, it's funny because once you build it and it's simplified, you kind of look at it and you're like, well, this isn't that impressive. And why is it that it's not that impressive? It actually is, because what we've done is we've reduced the noise. And in the personalization, we're actually delivering content, material, information, enablement that's extremely relevant at the time that it needs to be relevant. And so from my perspective, that's exactly what we need to be doing. And so we've been in beta for the last, I'd say 2 months, and the response has been extremely positive. And I think as we share our future roadmap, that's really where the partners are leaning in heavily. We're getting a lot of input from each and every one of those beta testers on how we're building this out. So we're really excited to see that that enthusiasm from them. Yeah.
I bet. And so for some partner marketers who are listening to this session today, who maybe are kind of starting their orchestration journey, James, I'll come to you before kind of asking Maisa the same question. What would one piece of advice be for them as they consider kind of 2025 planning and the first steps that they might be considering taking on that journey?
Yeah, so I think it probably goes back to some of what we discussed on the session. Start with the business objectives, the actual goals you have in the organization, and then building the understanding of where you currently are in the maturity gap to go and address some of those. So one of the things that we've been working on very hard in the last year, we launched in May the 360 Insights ecosystem, which was to help companies fulfill the maturity gaps, right? So if you're looking to really build a first-class marketing experience, as we've described here, you may have the CRM, you might have some of the content, but what if you need the learning management system that needs to plug in to enable the partners, or what if you need an account mapping technology to help understand the overlap data between your pipeline with partners. So we're trying to solve that problem by leading with a consultancy-led approach that helps companies really fulfill the supply and demand that are going to impact their business outcomes. But my number one piece of advice was don't rush to buying technology and features and functions. Work out what you're trying to achieve within the business and then go find the technology to support those goals.
Yeah, and phase it, right? And I think that's such a good point, James, because you want to do everything at the same time. The reality is go do it right first. And so take it in small chunks so that you get it right each and every time. And also, you don't have to rip it all out. So with the technology that we currently have, you don't have to rip all of it out, but you can actually leverage it and make it all work together. Yeah.
Great. And last one from me in the last few minutes that we have. So you briefly mentioned, the plans you have around your Campaign AI tool. And I have I don't have a crystal ball, but I imagine that AI is going to play a massive role in, the partner ecosystem and orchestration as we go through the next few years. James, I know there's some great things that you guys are working on in terms of how AI plays a role in the technology side of things. But yeah, if you guys had any thoughts on, what you think the role AI might play as we go through the next 2 years in partner marketing, what would that be?
Well, it's going to be absolutely transformational because it's going to impact every aspect of how you execute in marketing, but in particular ecosystems, right? Because there's more complexity, and if you're trying to describe a joint value proposition between 4 companies in the context of an individual customer, a human isn't going to do that at scale, right? So there are huge opportunities for automation. But I think the biggest challenge is people creating AI in silos, right? Because if each app has its own AI and each company is talking about the benefits of AI, it's very difficult to find the common ground within the organization. So again, this connected approach, a platform of platforms where all the vendors, all the content, all the data is converging, that's going to be the key to scaled AI strategy. Because if it's not all the same, it's the same as having 20 different experiences. If you have 20 different AIs that are not working together, that's also a challenge. So ServiceNow is doing some incredible things with AI at the workflow level. We have this one platform vision, to bring all the technologies and techniques together in a single experience. So again, I think we're going to have amazing opportunities in AI, but everybody, as everybody knows, this is just the beginning, right? There's a huge, huge opportunity that's going to emerge in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I'd echo those sentiments. And AI is not it's not easy, and so you need to identify. It's sort of like the orchestration model of identifying an ecosystem. You're identifying your data ecosystem of what you want your AI to be doing, and so to have an ecosystem model is really the most ideal in order for you to be able to deliver the types of experiences that you want with the prompts that are actually working. And so it's going to take time. I do think it's going to take time to get it right. But we're really excited about what we're seeing already with some of the work that we're doing with structured web. And one thing I failed to mention is, we're also working with Tenon to help us, as James mentioned, to manage our marketing concierge desk and to manage all of those internal workflows of those partner requests that come in the door. And so all of a sudden you're starting to aggregate those demands into a very functional and structured workflow that goes straight to the person that can actually help our partner. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and you mentioned structured web. I think some of the kind of benefits of, through partner marketing automation and kind of what might be possible there with the kind of improvements through AI and automation, I think make that super exciting. So yeah, lots to come. I really appreciate you both spending a bit of time today to share your story. Really excited to see kind of how this develops, you know, what the feedback is from your partners as things continue to improve and kind of drive forwards. But yeah, thank you both for the time that you've given. Encourage our audience to follow you both on LinkedIn. You know, I'm sure they can keep an eye on the story on what comes next. And yeah, hope everybody who has listened today found this useful, and enjoy the rest of Partner Week 2024. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.